A lot of people think that in order to create a reel that's really addictive, they need all these fancy bells and whistles, like all these crazy transitions and fancy editing. But that's not true. Because you can have all that, but if the actual content of your post is not helping your audience see how you can help them avoid a certain pain or achieve a certain desire, that reel is not going to convert. Which is why in this video, I'm going to break down some practical and actionable tips that you can use to create a reel that not only grabs your audience's attention, but also helps you build a loyal and engaged following and help you sell your offer. Now, for a reel to be addictive, it has to do three things. The first is it grabs attention. The second is retention, that is, it's interesting enough for someone to watch till the end. And the third is obsession, which means it's interesting enough for them to either visit your profile or binge the rest of your content. So let's start with the first one, that is attention, how to make them stop on your reel. The main way to do this is through your hook. And there are three types of hooks. A written hook, that is the text that they see on the screen. The verbal hook, which is what you say in the first few seconds. And the visual hook, which is what they see in the first few seconds of your reel. So let's start with the visual hook. The first way is to be in an environment that matches the topic of your video or your niche. For example, if you create fitness content, you could film in a gym or wearing fitness attire. If your niche is cooking, you could be in the kitchen. Basically, the background and the visuals should match the content topic or your niche. The second way to grab attention with your visual hook is to actually start your video mid-action and move into the frame. Here's an example to give you an idea of what that looks like. The third way is to do a quick zoom. This acts as a pattern interrupt and it also helps to focus your audience's attention on what you want them to see. The fourth way is to start your video by doing something really absurd or weird. This really confuses your audience and they'll stick around to see what's going to happen next. Okay, moving on to the written hook, that is the text that they'll see on screen when they land on your video. The first way is by mentioning a relatable desire or a pain point in the written hook so that they know that this video is for them. You want to make it really specific and relatable to the problem that your audience wants to solve. The second way to make your written hook eye-catching is to vary the fonts that you use. I see a lot of people doing this on Instagram, and if you're just starting out, I would stick to a maximum of just 2 fonts. The third way is by varying the text heights to stress on different words. For example, if there's a word that you want your audience to focus on, you can make the font size of just that word a little more bigger than the rest of the words that are in the hook. This way it just stands out a little better and you're directing your audience's attention onto what you want them to focus on. Now moving on to the verbal hook. The first way is to reference a relatable desire or a pain point, same as what you did with the written hook, and bonus points if you make it personal. The second way is to describe an action that you took and tease the outcome without actually saying what happened. You can talk about how the outcome made you feel. For example, I cut out sugar completely for 30 days and the results shocked me. You can see that I'm not telling what actually happened, but I am teasing the outcome by saying that the results shocked me. The third way is by talking about a big win that you achieved, but not telling them how to do it right away in the hook itself. Here's an example.
I've made over £80,000, and some of you guys were curious how I was even able to do that alongside a full-time job that I had to be in the office 5 days a week for. So I'm going to tell you exactly my strategies and mindsets I had.
The fourth way is by contradicting your audience's current assumptions. You can take something that they already believe in and then flip it by stating the opposite. This builds a lot of curiosity because it challenges what your audience thought was true. The fifth way is to start with the climax of the story and then go into building context of how you got there. In the traditional way that you tell a story, you usually start with the context and then build up to the climax. But if you want to make an attention-grabbing reel, we want to flip it a little bit and start with the climax and then build context. For example, you could say something like, I got laid off from my job that I was a manager at. So that's the climax. And then you build context. Like, I was in my office one day, just minding my own business, when my boss comes in and he says to me. So you can see how that would just kind of lead and build context, but you started with the climax, so it makes people curious, like they want to know what's happening. I go into way more detail on how to write a good hook in this video, and I've also included tons of examples, so I think you'll find it useful if you're interested in this topic. Now, the common mistake people make is that they over drag the tease and take a long time to actually get to the point and give context. For example, they might say something like, "Oh my goodness, you guys won't believe what happened today. I'm still shaking and I can't believe this happened. Just give me a minute. I need to collect my thoughts." You see how that's just like over dragging it a little bit? Like people are going to start getting worked up. They're going to start getting annoyed. You just want to say like maximum one or two phrases to build curiosity and then immediately get to the point. Give them context. Okay, moving on to part 2, which is how to improve your Reels retention. Now, the first method applies if you are going to be discussing multiple points in a single video. And that is to rank the upcoming points without revealing what they are. You can say which point is the best, worst, or most important without actually revealing what it is. For example, you can say something like, make sure you stick till the end because point 4 is the one that makes you the most money, but it's also the one that most people overlook. You can see how I didn't reveal what point number 4 is, but I did rate it or rank it in a way to make you curious and actually stick around till the end and want to find out what it is. The second way is by planting mini curiosity gaps in between your script. You can use the words but, however, and until throughout your script to kind of steer the narrative in a surprising direction. The third way is to cut out any redundancies. So write your script and then read through it and see if you can remove any words or phrases that will not change the meaning of your script. For example, instead of writing simple and easy to use, you can just write easy to use. What you're doing is you're basically cutting out any unnecessary filler words or phrases. The fourth one is my favorite, and that is by adding photo or text overlays to support what you're saying. If you have them pop up here and there every few seconds, it just adds a lot more visual interest to what you're saying. And the final way is by mixing angles. So this is where you would frame each scene from a different angle or in a different environment or setting. Okay, and moving on to part 3, that is obsession, how to make them visit your profile and or binge the rest of your content. The first way is by linking to a relevant reel at the end of your video. Now, this works really well because Instagram just recently rolled out this feature that allows you to link a reel, and I think it's going to be so good because it helps you create that bingeable content series. Creators on YouTube have already been doing this for years, right? Where they'll be talking about something and then they'll say something like, I've already made a video about this topic, so you can click here to watch it next. It's the same concept, but just take it and apply it to your reels. Okay, the second way is to tell them what they'll get from following you. A lot of people just say something like, oh, follow for more. But that doesn't tell me what your page is about, what do you do, who do you help. It doesn't give me any of that information. For example, you can say something like, I share 5-minute workouts for postpartum moms, so follow along for more. This just removes all the guesswork and tells them straight away like what your page is about and what your content is about. The third way is to end on a cliffhanger, and this is especially helpful if you're creating series style content. So you could say something like, come back for part 2 where I'll show you how much money I actually made, or come back for part 2 to see the final look. Now put that all together and you will have yourself the most attention grabbing reel. And YouTube thinks you'd like this video next, so go watch it.